Let's talk about our first pressing issue. And, you know, this has been, I mean, I know every year is crazy with coaching, but this year it seemed like, I mean, they weren't even off the field and they were firing. Heads were rolling. So let's talk about the 5 coaches that lost their jobs.
Yeah, well, I mean, we definitely saw 4 of them coming, right? So we saw Nagy coming. We saw Zimmer coming. We saw Judge coming. We saw Fangio coming. The one that we didn't see is in Miami was Flores.
Yeah,
we didn't see that coming. You know, and it all kind of started a couple weeks ago with Urban Meyer, rightfully so. And then these guys should have gotten axed, with maybe, you know, the exception of Flores, which we'll talk about later.
Antone called Urban the night before, like the night before he got fired.
That was a good call.
Yeah, that was kind of a no-brainer. It's sad in a way, but at the same time, I don't really have much sympathy for a guy like that. So
and Jacksonville is disputing that they owe him money because they're saying that there's a morality clause and that kicking your player, funny.
Yeah, you would think, you know.
Yeah. So which one of these coaches surprised you the least that they got fired?
Nagy. I think Nagy and Zimmer. I mean, it was kind of
really. Zimmer didn't. That one surprised me. Not like a lot, but just a little bit. For me, I think Fangio, like, that was a no-brainer for me because he's a defensive guy in an offensive league. The Broncos haven't been that special, and they have a really good roster. Like, they're not that bad,
except for their quarterback,
which they have to figure out. Which couldn't be his fault entirely, but that one was like, yeah, I'm not surprised by his firing at all.
I think the one that definitely had to go was Judge. Because for a roster that looks like that, I mean, they have a lot of offensive weapons, and they just cannot figure out how to use them.
Yeah, I was sad when I heard that.
That's mind-blowing.
He should have stayed.
He's, you know, the thing about him is I actually like him. Like, I feel like he's a decent guy. And so I think it's sad to me that, you know, he's a likable guy. I hate to see him get.
I think, he was to blame for some stuff, and I think it was I think he's also a victim of circumstance with certain things.
Mm-hmm. They've been very injured.
The roster, sure, they have some guys in some spots that, you know, look good, but that offensive line, they got one guy on there that's Andrew Thomas is legitimate tackle, but the rest of that offensive line, especially after we lost our center preseason, we had to go sign 2 guys a week before week 1, and they started for most of the year. Billy Price, who was a first-round pick for the Bengals, who wound up being a third-string player in his 3rd year, wound up starting first all year. Will Hernandez, who Dave Gettleman drafted in the 2nd round 3 years ago, had the worst year of his career.
Right.
You have Nate Solder at right tackle, who's basically a turnstile.
Yeah, who they overpaid for too.
Now, what I'll say for Judge, what his conservativeness towards the end of the season, him trying to save face, hurt him. Instead of going out there and putting a game plan together the way Dan Campbell did and kind of letting everything fly. I know they had Jake Fromm in there, but just the style and the way he coached those games. And I think his press conference a couple of weeks ago did him in.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. So I'm not too familiar with all the details because I don't really follow the Giants that much. But wasn't he, I wouldn't say guaranteed, but like he was comforted that he was going to have his job a few weeks ago.
Yes.
But then he played like he didn't have his job. Like, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Everyone's probably seen it. The quarterback sneaks back to back.
Quarterback sneaks were bad, but
things like that. Like, did he play himself out of his job? Did they tell him that he had it when he really didn't? Like,
I think all things being, it looked bad on the field, but like I said, I think the press conference really was the nail in the coffin because it turned what was a local story into a national story.
Yeah.
And in the New York media, small things like the quarterback sneak gets a lot of attention.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But if he didn't have that press conference, people wouldn't have been paying attention.
I was going to say, New York, there's nothing local about New York. If it's in New York, it's national.
Yeah, but people don't pay attention. They're not really a national story unless they're good. They don't talk about the Giants the way they do the Cowboys, the Steelers. So,
good point.
Yeah.
Antone, was there one that surprised you, a firing that you thought was, or maybe one that you thought was long overdue?
I really felt like the Chicago coach if you think about Chicago as a team, we all have fun with what they're doing, but they haven't been relevant for a while, in my opinion. And I think that was the one that they probably should have just made a move on. Instead, they were shuffling quarterbacks for quite a while and really disguising the real issue.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And to see him clean house, not only with the coach but also the general manager, I think it was.
That's how you have to do it, I think.
Yeah, I think it was the right thing to do. And I think especially if moving up to draft Fields, I think you needed a total.
Well, you're talking about a general manager that essentially shipped off their immediate future for 3 picks, twice to move up to get the franchise quarterback, and then the third one for an aging linebacker in Khalil Mack, who blatantly has had a great career in Chicago, had a career year his first year there, but I mean, you can't sell the farm like that, especially when all the pieces of the puzzle aren't there already to go and win a championship. Yeah. So I think that's the reason why why he was ushered out.
Well, that's fair, but the only thing I'll say is that Khalil Mack wasn't aging when you traded for him.
Well, he was 27, I think, at the time. 28.
He was just coming off he had just signed that new deal, so maybe
No, he did. Well, they had to sign him, but I think he was 27 or 28 at that point, and he was coming off of an injury as well. I think that's the reason why we got him relatively cheap.
But listen, it looked good. It looked good at first. I mean,
I was
if
happy
you
that
don't
we were
double
bringing him
doink the
down.
kick in the playoffs,
Then we lose in the next round.
Are you sure? I mean, the Eagles, who were, I mean, great story, but they weren't a powerhouse going into that playoffs, right? There's no, you guys were. I mean, I think you guys would have been favored the next round. So,
Didn't Nick Foles go to the Bears the year after?
sure
Yeah,
did.
he did.
Oh no, did he go to Jacksonville first? I thought.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
Jacksonville.
Jacksonville likes to pay people a lot of money and then not.
Here's
keep
a
them throughout the
question. I
year.
think we could all answer quickly and then let maybe Tone elaborate a little bit. But who do you guys think gets the job soonest? I think all these guys can land somewhere as a coordinator, but who do we think, if any of them, get another shot at being head coach?
the dude from Miami that we'll talk about.
Oh, who has the best chance to head coach again? You're saying?
Yeah.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
Fangio has
Flores.
the best chance at getting a job almost immediately.
As a
because,
coordinator.
Yeah, he does build a great defense.
I don't think Zimmer wants to coach anymore.
No.
I think he wants to hang out with his.
With his girlfriend.
Yeah,
He's
That's
70 years old. Right?
Google
We
it.
talked about that.
Yeah.
Google it.
Anton, have you seen his
I think
girlfriend?
Judge will go back to New England though.
Nope,
You need to Google.
haven't seen it.
I think right away.
You need to Google.
What did he do there?
Google.
Special teams?
He's a special team.
I thought so.
But yeah, as far as head coach, I don't think does Nagy, is he given another chance?
As a head coach?
Yeah, he's going to have to prove himself again.
Yeah.
He's going to be one of those guys that resurface 5-6 years
So
from now where he's in
Flores
the
is
conversation.
the easy
for,
answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I
Well,
said.
So I
mean,
guess outside of Flores, because it was unexpected, Nagy, I say we rule out Zimmer, so Nagy or what's his face, Fangio, because I think Judge is
I would
going to
go
go
with,
back.
with what Rocky said.
I think Judge was a surprise when he was made. the head
Exactly. I
coach.
think it'll be a while before
Yeah.
he's considered again.
Can I give some words of
ever.
encouragement to the Giants organization? I think
I don't need it, by the way.
you guys should. It's okay to change your mind. I think you should maybe bring back Edelman out of retirement, keep
No.
him for the next 30 years,
No.
re-sign Joe Judge,
Yeah.
and then bundle him with Daniel Jones for the next 30 years as well. Just keep that boat going.
Chip Kelly.
All right.
Anton,
Ratioed.
Anton's looking. He has searched out and seen. He has now seen Zimmer's girlfriend.
How you feel about that?
No comment.
He's ready to retire.
Yeah,
I think he's ready to retire.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't care about football.
By the
Let's-
way, Khalil Mack is 30, and he got traded in 2018. So
Let's move on to our next topic, and this is a really interesting one because, so setting up, Jacksonville took care of the Colts.
Yes.
So all that had to happen was the unlikely that the Raiders and the Chargers tied, and if they tied, both teams would have gone in the playoffs.
they were plus 2,700 to draw. Someone actually made a parlay, $11 for the Jags to outright win and for them to draw, and it was I think a payout of like $11,000 or something
And the amazing thing is, it was happening. They were tied
to the last second.
Raiders were driving with almost no time left, and for some reason, the Chargers took a timeout. The Raiders were basically going to take a knee and let the tie.
Well, we don't know that, but okay.
Well, that's what they claimed afterwards.
Not,
Speculation says.
not
Well, I mean,
in so many words, no.
but the Chargers took the timeout, and in new life, the Raiders ran a play, got a first down, kicked a field goal. That was the game winning.
Yep.
And then after the game, on the sideline, it seemed like Derek Carr told Austin Eckler, we were going to take a knee.
Yeah, he insinuated it.
So,
but can I say something before you? I'm going to let you guys go crazy on it, right? So 2 things. I heard, number one, somebody made this point earlier. I was listening to a show. It was Ryan Russillo, as a matter of fact. So the point he was making was that everybody's looking at the situation the way you are, like, oh, they had to be kneeling, but they're pointing out before they called the timeout, they were in a shotgun set. I think it was pretty clear that they were going to run a play. And if you're the coach of the Chargers, you have no guarantee that they're not going to try to run and get the first down and kick a field goal. Everybody's assuming that you got to assume that they're going to kneel on the ball, but you still got to kind of play. You got to play defense. Now, well, I'll criticize them because I don't think in that case you have to call a timeout to do that, to switch personnel. But that's what he chose to do. I think it was maybe a little bit of a mental fart on his part, panicking, calling a timeout.
yeah.
But I think the bigger issue that nobody's talking about, the timeout is one thing. I think he lost that game for them earlier in the game. By the way, he called that game. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
4th and 2 on his own 18. They go from a 3-point deficit to, in 5-6 minutes being down 29 to 14.
Well, and the thing is,
That was a much bigger deal.
You don't take the timeout because you call you set up your defense by calling 2 plays. You know what the offense is going to do. They're going to call, okay, this play and this play.
Yeah.
In other words, there was no need for the timeout.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think they could have,
Yeah, Derek Carr said that the timeout changed
their
game
process,
plan a little bit. And it might have sent a mixed signal, but to play devil's advocate, kind of like what you were doing, if they tie, the Raiders have a harder playoff schedule.
Yes.
If they win that game, they play the Bengals. If they draw, they play the Chiefs. So I personally think, why would you tie? Like, I would have gone for the game-winning kick as well, but I think Brandon Staley made that choice for them a little bit.
But, you're assuming that they think the Chiefs are a tougher opponent. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
They kind of handled them twice this year.
Yeah.
So.
But the Bengals
You're-
just handled
you're
the
right.
Chiefs.
I think this is what I'm saying. His thought process has to be that I can't not play defense here.
Yeah.
I think his mistake was calling a timeout to switch his personnel. He ran out a big run defender. It was like something very obvious. I think you call a blitz, a corner blitz, something to try to, a run blitz, that situation, not switch the personnel. Don't call the timeout. You still defend.
Yeah.
They got gashed anyway, right? So,
I just know in high
the
school
timeout
football,
just hurts.
Yeah.
I just know in high school football, we were calling 2 plays ahead. In other words, you're hey, get ready, you're going in.
Yeah, he
get this
screwed
guy.
up. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
they lost that game early though because they could not convert at all. Like him being such an analytics guy, he probably was like, "Oh, we're converting these 4th and 10s. Let's just keep doing it." It seems like that's the only down we can convert. So the Chargers didn't deserve that win that game in the first
Well,
place.
I think they did. I don't think the coach. I think the coach lost that game. I think that call in the third quarter lost them that game.
Yeah.
They were down 3 points and it flipped into being down 2 scores.
Yeah.
Because of him being too ballsy.
Yeah, he's a first-year head coach too. Yeah.
Antone, Mark, any thoughts? And it's okay.
I feel like we said everything.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know what Tone thinks though.
In that situation, hindsight's always 20/20. I think that when you call a timeout like that, the game is tied. You're in your mind, you have to be thinking, worst case, let's go to overtime. So let's make sure we play good defense on this last play. And it just didn't work out the way he planned. So had he stopped them and they went in and tied and won, then that would have been the best timeout ever. But it turned out not to be the case.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to call a timeout, then get the right formation in there to stop the play.
Yeah,
too.
do what you were
Right.
intending to do. Yeah.
Right.
All right, last topic, and I'm hoping that Antone has got some real thoughts on this. NIL, is it good for college football? And, this is a year of change with college football in general, between the openness of the transfer portal and then the NIL being such a big deal. So what do you guys think about this? And, Antone, I'd love to get your thoughts, having a son who's about to go right into college here.
Yeah. So I definitely have some opinions on this one. I really think NIL, as it stands today, is good for football, college football in general. It actually answers the age-old problem why players weren't paid years ago. So when I was in college years ago, I remember me and teammates literally counting people in the stands going, they're making this much money on us, they're making that much money on us, and we're getting nothing. And the answer from coaches was always, well, we pay you, but the other schools couldn't afford to pay their players, so we're not going to pay anybody. And so the problem is now, and here's exactly what's happening. Some folks can afford to pay more than other folks can afford to pay.
Right.
Some people have loyalties at other places. I do believe it's going to get, and I'm going to say this for the Sun in football, it's going to get a little bit crazy before we have sort of a correction.
It's already
so I think what we
crazy.
have to see is, I think what we have to see is how far is this thing going to go and how much is it going to change football before we have a correction. But I think at some point it's kind of the Wild West right now, but I think we're all trying to figure it out. I don't think the intent, though, originally was to have the highest bidder get the player at their school, although that's definitely an unintended consequence. I think the idea was to try to make the players whole in some way. And now, of course, boosters, depending on where you live, depending on where your loyalty is, they're going to maximize the things best they can. It's good for the players, but I'm not 100% sure it's great for football in the long run based on what we want to see as competition on the field.
It's crazy because there's so much fallout from this too. This kind of, in a way, essentially makes the boosters the GM of college football teams. They can shell out money to get guys, bring guys into town that they wouldn't have normally been able to court because you're Jackson State, and the fact that, it's already gotten crazy. The fact that Deion has landed 2 of the top 5 overall prospects in the nation coming to Jackson State, I like it. I think college players, especially ones that, they go to school solely for the purpose of playing football. There's really no, academics going on where they're going to have, they're going to be set up long-term after football. I think this really gives them a chance to capitalize on their talent and be able to, put some money in their account and hopefully take care of their family going forward. I like it because, again, like Tone said, these colleges make a fortune off of these kids not making anything. I mean, you can argue scholarships is making money because you're going to school for free, but again, a lot of them are on athletic scholarships, and it's unfortunate, but they end up not really. If football doesn't pan out, then they're just kind of they're meandering about.
Well, in scholarships, I mean, a player can lose their scholarship midway through, and then they can't finish their education either. I mean, that happens to players. So, I guess I don't have any trouble with them getting paid. I do think there's going to have to be rules, and I think there's going to have to be rules pretty quick because, like, one thing that doesn't make sense is Quinn Ewers, who signed with Ohio State, but I don't think he ever had any intention of going to Ohio State. He got about $1.5 million in NIL money by enrolling early and then transferred to Texas, which is where everybody thought he was going to go anyways. So none of us was surprised when he transferred. I think he just did a money grab, and I can't blame him because it was there. But I think they've got to close some of that because that just isn't good for college football as a whole.
Who do you have your eye on? Who are you going to throw money at? Ohio State, bringing them in.
Well, I don't know yet. We'll see.
Throw some Chick-fil-A
you got to think
coin
about
at them.
There's a couple of elements you have to think about. You have to think about the market, and I think the market itself has to sort of level itself out. If I told NFL players, I'm going to give you an extended education, you just come and play football for it, you should be happy. They look at you like you're crazy because the market demands the salaries that they're getting. Likewise, in college, the market is going to demand a certain amount of money to these players. Now, think about it like this. I don't know who the booster is at Jacksonville. I don't know who the relationship is that Jackson State or the relationship that's connected to Jackson State. But I happen to believe that there are boosters in Texas and there are boosters in Oklahoma and there are boosters in Tennessee, for that matter, who could have outbid Jackson State. So it's about money, but it's not all about money because if it was just, then you just have a billionaire war, right? They just pay. Yep. So at the end of the day, I really think this thing is it's going to correct itself. But what it's also telling you is there is a market that says we think these players are worth this. And so once that market levels itself out, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, and I think at least one of those players mentioned playing for a historically black college as a draw too, and playing for Deion Sanders.
Right.
And so I think
Right.
that there are other factors too that
Right.
matter to.
Not just the money. That's
Right.
exactly what I'm saying. If it was just the money, I guarantee you there are more billionaires that could have outbid Jackson State.
Yeah. So, well, that's a fair point. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good bow to put on
Yeah.
that.
I do have one little thing. When we were talking about this before we started recording, it made me think about kind of the opposite of it. Some players are going to be motivated by that money instead. I mean, in the NFL, we sometimes see someone getting a big contract, and instead of playing for that pay, they're doing the opposite. And that might happen to these kids in college that are young, and like the dude the money grab, like that happens. Like why not just take the bag then, and you are then almost, I mean, you probably are set for life, but like, why would you perform really well? Why would you pursue the NFL and play like you're humble and hungry?
Make more money.
Yeah, but like,
But that's going to be an interesting thing because, like Quinn Ewers, he's an 18-year-old kid. He's got $1.5 million. Like, does he now lose the desire
you could see like
to put his
watered
body
down
out there?
performance. Yeah.
You know?
Well, let's face it.
But
this,
that happens in the NFL too. Sorry.
That's what I was
fine.
saying, yeah.
This has happened in college too. It's just happened under the table. You know, if you ever listen to any of the podcasts with Johnny Manziel had millions of dollars in college. He was given everything for free. This guy goes on to talk about how he would go to parties and these older gentlemen, these boosters, would just walk up and they would throw money in his shack of pockets.
And then what happened to him? Why pursue amazing NFL career when you have the money young?
Well, I think he's.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, though. I mean, you kind of just weed those guys out, and it saves some of these franchises from drafting them.
The people that I really like this for are those guys that have those unfortunate, untimely injuries right before being drafted in the NFL.
Yeah.
Case in point, last night, Jamison Williams, he may have just torn his ACL, and he was screaming up the board.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're talking about a guy that hopefully somebody takes a chance on a decently high draft pick. That way he can cash in. But chances are he just lost millions of dollars from
Well,
that.
I mean, most
Good
of
point.
those guys, though, they have a pretty hefty insurance policy, thank God.
Yep.
And honestly, I think somebody's still going to take them
Yeah,
late first
ACLs
round.
in particular are not what they used to be.
Yeah, he'll probably still get taken in the first round. But you're right. And Matt Corral, he played into the game in a meaningless game. And he ended up getting hurt. And, that could impact where he gets drafted.
A high ankle sprain, so it wasn't that bad. But I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, so
Just saying they were not. It's not.
is that what it ended up being? 'Cause,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure. I saw him go down, and I wasn't sure if it was.
But no, the point stands. I'm just saying in his case, like,
Yeah.
One last point. Well, the high ankle sprain, actually, I learned the hard way. Well, Braden learned the hard way. It can be a pretty significant injury. So, depending on what all got hurt in that injury. But I will say, too, guys, remember baseball's been offering out $1 million contracts to high school seniors for a lot of years already. So it's nothing new in baseball.
Yeah.
True.
good point.
All right. Well, Antone, thank you very much for joining us as always. You make us appear to be a lot smarter than we are.
Speak for
No,
yourself.
you guys are awesome, man. I appreciate being a part of it.
All right, man. We'll catch you next week, brother.
Thanks, man.
All right, we'll see you guys.